the good, the bad and the ugly of COVID today. I'm sure a lot of us is getting to the point now, isn't it, where everyone's just like, I don't want to listen about it. But I think it's a really good time for us to talk about everything that's come out of COVID. Sorry, guys, just bear with me one moment.
Both rooms can hear everything.
Oh.
You do what you do.
Okay. Apologies about this. Apparently everyone can hear everything that's going on. So I think the people in the other room can hear what we're talking about. But we're going to carry on through. So we're going to look at all of the good, the bad, everything that's happened out of COVID, and how we can harness all of that now, and we can go, right, okay, we're over that. What's the next challenge? And hopefully this might turn into a little bit of a mindset change for you by the end of today's session. So I hope you have all got your delegate packs handy, and you should have received a set of post-it notes in your delegate pack. So I would like you to get those out. I'm very sorry, the inner teacher in me has arisen again. So on your post-it note, I would like you to write for me, what is your good, what is your bad, and what is your ugly of COVID? So they could be absolutely anything. So if I give you my examples, so my good, the good that came out of COVID was my lovely little George. He was a full-on height of lockdown baby, but he's the good thing out of COVID. The bad thing, the isolation, the not getting to see our family, that type of thing. But then the ugly side of it is all of the things that came alongside and the massive changes we had to make working with access for our students. And I'm sure many of you will know that there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes, and there was a lot of paper being thrown at one point. So they're my goods, bads and uglies. So if you can all have a go at doing that, and then let me know in the chat when you've done that, that would be fabulous. And that's you too, Jenna. I'm not going to make you share, so don't worry. Oh, Natty, that's such a shame. I can't believe there's no post-it notes. I will make sure, though, I will make a note of it, and I'll make sure we send you some anyway, because they're really nice post-it notes, so I will make sure you get some. Hopefully you got your little treat in it, though. That's the important part. Hopefully you got a treat in there. I'm looking forward to enjoying my big bar of chocolate later. Definitely. I'm child-free tonight, Natalie, so I am looking forward to being able to enjoy it in peace, but I will have to hide it from the husband for sure. So just let me know in the chat when you've done your good, bad and ugly, and then we can carry on.
Sally, I've missed a few bits because I was just going downstairs to look at the post, as it didn't get collected yesterday, and I've seen in the chat that some of the people have not received their packs, but they're going to get them, but it's not arrived in time. It'll be late.
Okay.
Because the post never comes to seeing who posted. Elaine, I think yours is downstairs waiting to go because the postman hasn't been for 2 days, so apologies for that, but it'll be something to enjoy at a later date.
Thank you for that, Jenna. We'll double check though. If you don't receive one, please do let us know though, and we can send it out afterwards. We'll make sure that they get sent out. Don't want you missing out on chocolate. Excuse me. Oh, thank you for sharing your good, bad and ugly, Sarah. That work commute, I have to admit, that work commute is quite good, isn't it now? Just up the stairs. You might not even have the stairs. It's a good job I do have the stairs though, because otherwise my step count for the day would be awful. There definitely is, Sarah. There's chocolate. If I hadn't have moved rooms, I'd have been able to share with you. But there's a nice little chocolatey surprise on its way to you. Okay, well, we'll carry on then. I'm hoping you've all done them. So I thought we would dive straight in, and we're going to go straight for the ugly, because let's be honest, it's not been the best, has it? There have been some amazing things that have come out of COVID, but it hasn't been the best. And I decided that what I would do is I would just dump all of my thoughts in terms of what were all the ugly things with my teaching background that I would have found really hard and really difficult to deal with. So what would have been the ugly side? So I've just got lots of examples here for you. So I've got things like lack of opportunistic learning. So one of the things I used to love about Access was the fact that they would ask you, the group would ask you random questions at random times, and it would send you off on a tangent, but they were still very valuable learning experiences for those students. And obviously, the fact that there was a reliance on technology, the fact that we're on Teams, that opportunistic learning wasn't always there because of the interaction being different, the conversations different, students' confidence to interact with the sessions might quite not have been the same. So those opportunities might not have arisen quite the same. So that was one of the things I thought of. A constant need to change approach. This was something that I felt as well, for quite a significant period of time when COVID first hit. We were very much dealing on a day-to-day basis. So what we were dealing with in the morning would have changed by the afternoon. And that's why those clinics were so beneficial, because we could show you that we would take the information in at lunchtime from QAA, and then we would give it to you guys as to what was happening and what the changes were. But we're teachers, we work in education, don't we? We're used to that constant changing. Nothing ever stays the same, does it? That restricted tutor to student relationship, that, it's just not the same, is it, as getting to see them physically. Communication is poorer. We all know how valuable that very short period of time those Access learners are with us is. And we build so much in that time with them. And the journey that they go on is massive. And there's so many different areas that we work on with them, that their communication, their practical skills, all of the things that we don't realise we're necessarily embedding by that physical presence in a classroom, it's just not the same, is it? We've got lack of interaction between the tutors and the peers as well. So you've not got those conversations you would have had normally. And therefore you don't build the relationships the same with the students. You don't have those random conversations about the children and what you did the night before, or the TV that you've watched, or things like that. So it's very different. So there's loads of ugly sides of it. Oh, and too much cake. Definitely too much cake. I hope some of you guys will probably agree with me at this point that at one point my husband did actually ask me to stop baking because he said I can't eat any more cake. So that definitely too much cake. And also one of the ugly sides of COVID is that snow days are no more. Snow days are no more. Quite a few people that earlier in the week when they had snow, their children got sent online learning for the day. So snow days are not a thing anymore. So that's one of the things that, lots of ugly things that have come out of COVID, and, that made it really hard and made it a really, really challenging time. But one of the things that I was always taught, and I've always been told, is that you try and turn a negative into a positive. You always try, and when there's a situation that's not great, you try and find a positive in it, and you try and put a positive spin on it, and you make something good come out of it. And whilst all of those things that we've already talked about are the negative side of COVID, and they are things that aren't ideal, we actually can turn the majority of them into a positive. So I know you're all probably going to be thinking, oh no, but I am going to look at this list again, and I'm going to turn some of these into a positive, because I'm hoping that by the end of today, we can be looking at those ugly things of COVID slightly differently. So the ugly side then of, let's have a pick of one, social media influence. Whether we like it or not, social media is a massive part of life now, isn't it? And Connor showed you earlier how we can use social media for benefit. But we also know, don't we, that whilst we were isolating, we were on social media a lot more, and that can really impact our students' viewpoints, can't it? I always used to find that, particularly with the subjects with a psychology background, social media had a massive influence on their viewpoints and their opinions of what was going on in the world. But the positive side of social media for COVID is the fact that it got used in a really positive way for communicating with people in a way that we hadn't used it before. I think it's opened people's eyes to how we can actually use social media in an educational setting. I'm sure you guys are the same, and it was a bit of an inspiration for the advertising that we did for this conference, was that the schools did lots of messages with the paper airplanes to try and keep in contact with the students. I know my son's school, we had lots of video messages, and it was all via social media to keep those lines of communication open with people. So whilst it was a really ugly side of it in terms of the not being able to necessarily impact and stop those viewpoints of things that are going on a plus side, it was actually really beneficial for us. Where have we got else? Reliance upon technology. I'll be the first to put my hands up, and the majority of people here will know me and technology do not mix. So it really threw a lot of us into an environment where we had to rely on technology, and we were using technology that we'd never used before. Whereas now, much more confident, and I'm allowed to use a lot more technology than I was before, which has got to be a winner for everybody. So we can use that technology differently. A lot of people have learned now that there is a lot more facilities in things than there were previously. We can use a lot more, like Zoom. Who knew about Zoom before COVID? So, let's harness that and how we can use it. It's allowed us to be able to still have these events to connect with you guys. And, the cake thing, we all want more cake, don't we? I did stop the baking, but, only at his request. Isolated viewpoints and understandings. Again, this is quite a different one, isn't it? Very often with access students, you're talking about quite up-to-date topics that are going on in the world. And because of COVID, those viewpoints, you've not got that challenge of the classroom quite the same, have you? However, because of the more technology, because of all of the things that came to light during COVID, of the resources that were at our fingertips, they've actually been able to do more research. You've been able to encourage them to go off and do more research tasks, whereas previously you might have just given them the information, whereas actually you are now given the opportunities to be able to share it with them. So hopefully you can see that, yes, there's lots of ugly sides to it, but we can make a positive. And I'm pretty sure out of all of these that I've got listed here, we could turn them into a positive. So I want you to just take a minute and pick one and see if whilst you can make it into a positive, and then share it in the chat. So sorry, Natalie, I've just seen your good, bad and ugly. Or moving house in COVID cannot have been good. But career change, fantastic. You will get a chocolate surprise soon. So as soon as you've picked one and you've turned it into a positive, then pop it in the chat. So Sophie's done one. So we've got constant need to a change approach has made us more adaptable. Totally, Sophie, definitely. We've all learned, haven't we, that we can change and change is good. Reliance on technology, I've just had to use it and I've actually learned things and have realised I'm not, yeah, exactly, Sarah. It's been a massive confidence boost, hasn't it, in terms of that respect, definitely. And I think it's shown us all that where previously we would have had hesitations to rely on technology and to have worked in the ways that we have, that actually we can really make it work. Definitely, people are a lot more forgiving, aren't they, now, when it doesn't work. Oh, that's fantastic, Natalie. So you've made a massive change from secondary to access. That is a really big change. But the fact that it gave you the confidence to do that is brilliant. Access is, it sounds like such a cliche, but I always use the term, it's magical. And once you go to access, you'll never go back. Good. That's so true, Sue, isn't it? So true that I actually think that because there was that restricted contact, we all made more effort, didn't we, to actually speak to people face to face, definitely. I think there's a few more people in here, aren't there? We'll just give them a couple of minutes to share. I can't see any coming through at the minute, so I'm going to move on to the next bit because I'm conscious of time, and I think you're all going to like the bit that's coming up. So just bear with me. So we've looked at the positives then, and when I've looked at it and where we are, we can see that the journey from COVID's only just started, and I'm sure many of us are feeling a little bit unsure and uneasy at the moment as to what is ahead of us. But our journey of change and our journey of taking what we've learned from COVID's only just started. I don't know about you guys, but I found the presentation from QA this morning really, really interesting, that access is in such a positive place currently, that I think now is really the time to take hold of it, grip it and go with it. And let's really show what access can do and what we can do with it and achieve. So obviously, COVID it's opened our eyes up to lots of opportunities, hasn't it? Education is changing. It's always changing. We know that. But our expectations have changed. In terms of our what we're prepared for, what we're ready to go with has changed. And those expectations will remain now. So it's about how we can make it work better for our access students. And I strongly believe that we can learn so much from what we have had to utilise over the last 2 years to make our access learners' experiences better. And I think if we sat down and we look at our typical access learner and those challenges that they come up against, that perhaps our typical 16 to 19 student wouldn't necessarily have to face, we can help them and we can support them and we can make that journey even better. So the ones that have got, that are juggling the childcare, they're working shifts to be able to manage to do the access course, those types of things. I strongly believe that we can use what we've learned from COVID, and we can use that to harness and make our experiences for our access learners better, and we can give them more options. So I want you to take a minute and I want you to think, it's quite a difficult question this is. If I asked you to describe an access learner, what are the types of words that you would use? What would you think in terms of the different circumstances that an access learner comes with, the different personality traits that those students appear with? And then we can think then about how we can, what we've learned from COVID, we can use to help those experiences. Unique. Oh, that's a good one, Andy. Unique, definitely. Every student that comes through that door, whether they're always unique, aren't they? Resilient, yes, definitely, definitely. Older, more experienced in life, yes, definitely. Although we are seeing a younger demographic coming through, keen to learn. Totally lacks self-belief and education abilities. That's definitely something with most access learners, isn't it? They don't believe the journey that they're going to go on. Focused, definitely. Excuse me. I don't think any access learner truly understands how different a person they're going to be all round when they finish their diplomas to they are when they start. Lots of, I used to call it my proud mummy moments when they'd finished their diplomas and watching how they'd grown. So all of those things, we've picked lots of positives, which is excellent about those students, but they do come with their own sets of circumstances, don't they? So if you think about all of those different things, they're very often, like I say, working. They are managing childcare, aren't they? They are managing all the commitments that they've got, you know, with family, those types of things. And COVID's shown us that we can be so much more flexible for those students now, and we can offer much more flexibility than we did beforehand. Because let's be honest, if we all put our hands up and we're honest, how many of you, if a student messaged you in the morning and said, I can't make it today, so-and-so's poorly, we would never have even crossed our minds to have offered them a remote version, would it? However, now it's just a natural thing to say, well, join us via Teams instead, isn't it? So it's really opened up that flexibility for our students. Definitely, Sarah, there's always a backstory, isn't there? No matter how small or large, there is definitely a backstory to those students. And COVID's taught us that those backstories, we can put different tools in place, can't we, to support them, like having the Teams options. Like now, we are not rigid to that assessment method, are we? Beforehand, it was a case of, this is the assessment I've written, that's what I'm going to do with. But now we know we can adapt. We can change those assessments. If I've got a student in my class that doesn't necessarily suit the assessment method that I've set, I can change it. That's fine. And I think it's made us aware that we can make those changes and it will be okay. It's not too much of a worry as such. And I think that's why at Current, access is blooming, because we've been able to demonstrate how we can do this and how we can make the change for the better. So what's next then? We celebrate our achievements. You know, we have thanked our centres on more than one occasion for your engagement with us as an awarding organisation during COVID. You've been fantastic. You've supported us as well along the way, and we've tried everything we can to support you guys and to make it as easy a process as we can. But we shouldn't forget what you guys have achieved. It's time to make the changes. It's time to perhaps make those changes we wouldn't have done for prior. And hopefully for a lot of you, you have seen that now you've made that change, let's run with it. We had to do it. We were in a circumstance where we had to do it. And now let's not go back. Let's keep going forward. Like I've just talked about, we can look at those access students. We can look at all of that series of circumstances that they come with us to, and we can improve their student experience because of what we've learned we can do through COVID. We can use those experiences by demonstrating what we've learned and to our future students, what can be achieved. So whilst we know that cluster of learners are, you know, that they're very, it's a unique situation, the ones that have achieved during the pandemic, but we can go and we can show students now what we can be achieved and what we can do. But what's really important, I think now, is that we say to COVID, yeah, that's okay, we've done that, but what's the next challenge? you know, we've got COVID, we can do this, but we need to, what's our next challenge going to be? What are we going to move on to next? And what are we going to take battle on as such for in our next stages? So I'm going to ask you a big question now, and it might not have changed, it might still stay the same, but I'm wondering, has what we've talked about today, has it changed your good, your bad and your ugly of COVID? Because my good obviously is still the same, although I would say we're entering the terrible too. So I wouldn't say he's quite as cute and lovable as he was then, because we're entering the terrible twos, but he's still my good thing out of COVID. My bad and my ugly, I do think are more positive now. I do see the benefit of, whilst those things have been really hard and it's been really difficult to manage the change and be isolated from people, actually, it's opened our eyes to what we can do under those circumstances and what we can all achieve. So I'm going to put it to you guys now in the chat and see, what do you think? Are they the same, or do you think you might maybe change yours slightly? Definitely, Sarah, definitely. We do want our students to always question, don't we? And we want them to think about it, and we want them to not necessarily, don't ask them to change, but to have a new viewpoint, don't we? See if anybody else comes up with anything. Definitely. And at the time they did seem really negative, didn't they? And it posed challenges. So it's one of those things, isn't it? That it's hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But actually now, if we can take what we've learned from it and we can move forward, then that's really, really good. So we'll see if anybody else comes up with anything. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of a delay on the chat or not, so I'll give it and see if anybody else pops anything in. That's a really good one, Jenny. We definitely can. We can show them how to do it, can't we? We can show them how to make those changes, and we can be the guinea pigs for it, can't we? Okay, so I don't think anyone else is going to say anything else on that one. Okay, so that was everything we've got planned for the good, the bad and the ugly. Like I say, I would really like to think maybe it's just made you stop and think that actually, you know, there are good things to come out of this, and let's move forward with that and not dwell on those negative things. We have got a few minutes, so if anybody's got any other questions they would like to ask, if anyone wants to ask me anything, or if not, we are due to go for a break after this session. So you will, once we're